when you're listing and selling property in another state or territory. Can you do it? Well, yeah, you can. And, every state and territory of Australia has different property laws. So, we have the Property and Stock Agents Act here in New South Wales. There's the Estate Agents Act in Victoria. There's, different acts. There's the Property and Motor Dealers Act in Queensland. So, and everybody's in the process of changing the legislation about property, changing how agents work in every state. So things are changing almost weekly in how these things happen. We think we've had a lot of upheaval here in New South Wales. Well, it's happening everywhere. So everybody's got that deal. So if you're looking to sell property and in another state or manage property in another state, bottom line, you need to be licensed in that state. So because you're working by their laws, these are not Commonwealth laws. There is no national license. That was a path that was examined for a few years, about 10 years ago. Didn't happen. Will it happen one day? Well, fingers crossed. But a lot of other pieces of legislation need to change before we get to that point. And there's a review at the moment on mutual recognition legislation. So, lots of things that need to change. Let's get back to you listing and selling and managing, though, in another state. Yeah, you need to be licensed. And yes, you can mutually recognise your licence from New South Wales into another state or from another state into New South Wales, so long as you jump the hoops that particular state requires. So all good. But you need to hold that licence in that state. Now, this varies slightly if you are on the border. So where people are doing this a lot, so the Albury-Wodongas, the Tweed Coolangattas, the ACT as a whole into New South Wales. So it's, a lot of agents there are listing in both Queensland, New South Wales, ACT, New South Wales, Victoria, New South Wales. So, and that, and so on. So that changes, Broken Hill down into South Australia. So it needs to be looked at quite carefully. Now, if we look at Section 28 of the Property and Stock Agents Act, we can say, okay, where are we at with this? It's about registered officers. So if you're in one of those border towns, if you are within 50 kilometres of a border, so, and it doesn't matter what border that is, anything that borders with New South Wales. This is about the New South Wales Property and Stock Agents Act. So if you're within 50 kilometres of any of the borders of New South Wales, then you can actually hold a licence for New South Wales. So you're over the border in Victoria, over the border in Queensland, you're in ACT, you're in South Australia. If you're within 50 kilometres of the New South Wales border, then you can hold your New South Wales licence at your interstate office. So you can have your registered office being in that other state or territory so long as it's within that 50 kilometres. Okay, so you don't need to set up another office in New South Wales or have a practice happening in New South Wales to be able to list in those. So think about it. If you're in one of those border towns, and we get this question quite frequently, have a look at Section 28 of the Act, and it talks about your registered office and address. If you still want to discuss it, obviously give us a call and we'll talk you through what you need to do from a licensing perspective and how to what licenses you need to apply for to do whatever it is what functions you want or services you want to offer to your clients. But particularly important that you keep your registered office up to date, that you inform fair trading if you're changing anything, if you're wanting to, play in this state, or if you want to play in other states, there's the same rules about that 50 kilometres. So you need to look at each state's legislation depending on where you're physically located. So I guess that's a long answer to, can you list and sell property in another state and territory? Yes, you can. But obviously there's rules and regulations around that.